before, but in a different chair. Actually, he'd be sitting, not standing. Jonathan Daitch is the concertmaster of the Gulf Coast Symphony, and this marks the first time that he'll have played a concerto with us. Even though he plays solo licks every single concert, this is really a very special occasion. And it's great to have someone who's been a member for we're in our 16th season, most of those 16 years, to really give them a chance to have this spotlight. So I just wanted to acknowledge our great concertmaster, Dr. Jonathan Daitch. So we've chosen a concerto that's pretty much the jewel of the romantic violin concerto repertoire. It was written it was started around 1838 by Mendelssohn, shortly after he got married, so he was in a happy mood, although it ended up taking him almost 6 years to write the concerto. And the concerto was actually written for his concertmaster. Mendelssohn was the conductor of the Gewandhaus Orchestra in Leipzig, and he had a great relationship with his concertmaster, and he decided that he was going to write him a concerto. And because he felt that Mr. Frank was such an amazing violinist, he felt it took him 6 years to get this concerto perfect. And so I just think it's just sort of a great symmetry that we have a concerto written for a concertmaster being played by our concertmaster.
I've been playing this for 30 years and it's still not perfect.
Well, here's your chance. So let's see, there are a number of, for those of you who've never been to a Gulf Coast Symphony Access concert, which are our classical concerts, they're a little different, they're a little bit less formal, and hopefully a little bit educational. So there's about a half dozen little examples that we want to show you, which will give you a few more signposts about this particular concerto. Now, one of the things that was kind of groundbreaking for the concerto is in standard classical concerto form, it always began with an orchestral introduction. And the orchestra gets and plays both of the major themes, and then finally the violin soloist comes in. That's not the case in this concerto. In this concerto, the orchestra basically lays down the equivalent of a harmonic beat underneath, and the violin soloist comes in immediately with the theme. So this is the first theme there's two themes in the first movement, and we'll ask Jonathan to play for us the first theme of the first movement. So that's how it basically starts. The concerto opens with the solo voice, with this theme, which Mendelssohn writes in his memoirs, haunted him. There was something about this E minor concept that sort of got under his skin. It's interesting the way it's played with. Now, the orchestra, after the violinist has the first theme, finally comes in with the theme. And this is what it sounds like when the full orchestra plays it. So this is exactly the opposite of just about whatever had been done before. Normally the orchestra would do something like this, and then the soloist would come in. So it gives a retrospection and kind of an inward look to the piece, because it starts with this solo voice thinking about, music. Each of these lines or themes for me are just like a sentence in a language, thinking about this idea. The idea being this theme, before it's expanded by the full orchestra. There's one other theme in the first movement, and I would be remiss if I didn't show you. In this case, it does come first in the orchestra, and we'll hear it in the woodwinds. Second theme, please. Yeah, and then the solo violinist takes the theme over. Now what's interesting is because Mendelssohn really is in between the Romantic Classic period, we still have that very periodic kind of rhythm. It's not, I mean, we can really feel 1, 2, 1, 2, and you can hear question and answers harmonically for those of us who are a little more sensitive to that. So it's romantic in the sense of its overall structure and in the type of melodies that he's choosing. The last thing that I wanted to show you in this theme is the first movement has the cadenza, which is the chance for the soloist to show off. And it was written in by Mendelssohn, which is also unusual, because unlike Mozart, they would put a fermata or a bird's eye. Basically, they would put a mark that says, this is an empty space, go to it, violinist, or whatever instrument. In the case of the concerto, Mendelssohn actually wrote the cadenza. And there are a number of different things that will show off the virtuosity of the violin. But I thought that I'd ask Jonathan to show us a little bit of the fancy bow work. In violin, there are two things. You have your hand, I mean any string instrument. You have your fingers, which are putting down, hopefully, the right notes in tune. And then your bow arm. If either part doesn't work, you're not a very good violinist. The bow arm can be very underestimated, but without good technique in how you're using your bow and where it's touching the string, it doesn't work. So one of these techniques is ricochet, where you're literally kind of throwing the bow on the string, and it only works at certain tempos. So I thought he'd just sort of show what a ricochet is for us a little bit.
Each note. So the bow is bouncing and catching each note instead of just playing it continuously. So it's a very sparkling sound.
In the second movement, again, the melody is introduced by the solo violin. So and the other thing about this concerto is the three movements directly follow one another. In other concertos, you play the first movement, then there's a pause, then you play the second movement, and there's a pause. In this case, the first movement goes seamlessly into the second movement, connected by a single note in the bassoon, which I can make her hold as long as I want until her face turns red. And then I usually keep going. But it sort of gets us into this new tonal universe, just hearing this solo bassoon note. And then we get the theme, which is introduced after a couple bars in the solo violin. There's a secondary theme within the second movement, which is first introduced by violins and cellos, and we're going to play that, and then it's taken up by the solo violinist, but he provides himself his own accompaniment. So first we're going to play what the melody line is, and then Jonathan's going to demonstrate how it works when he gets it. So basically he becomes the entire band. He has to play all the harmony, he has to play the melody, and that's one of the great things about violin. Unlike woodwind instruments or brass instruments, he can play multiple notes at the same time. Let's see, the very last thing is the final theme for movement 3. And again, it's introduced by the violin. It's consistent. Our last theme, please. So, that's your very quick roadmap. Without further ado, we're about to hear the perfect version of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto.